today, we're talking about how physical health is a difficult area for a lot of us. And so
Sigh.
just to
Sigh.
piggyback on what you just said, I mean, even though, you have expressed now that you're doing pretty well and that, you've seen some progress, and especially with like getting actual blood work, it's like, oh, like I'm seeing the results right here that
Evident.
I'm yeah, that I'm doing okay. But I think what the point is that most of us can at least admit that we might be falling a little bit short on what we know we should be doing or what we want to be doing ideally for our physical health. And most of us have a higher level of physical health to achieve that we just aren't. And I think that this conversation is really about the why behind that. Why are we not getting to that level of physical health that we know we can get to, that all of us have within us to achieve? And I think, there's many reasons behind it. And I think primarily, like, we're going to talk about the mindset but behind it, that we all kind of like we have different reasons, but I think there's like a one kind of like tie between it, that's like we all are struggling with a similar kind of way of thinking about physical health. And I think um
Not so obvious.
it's not so obvious. And
Mhm.
we like to tell ourselves that it's certain things, such as like, oh, we don't have enough time to do this, or it's too expensive to try this new diet, or like, it's so hard to get to the doctor to address this thing. Like, those are valid. We're not saying that it's not valid. We'll probably explore some of that more, but there's also like some other stuff underneath it that when we unpack this and actually like talk it through, it might kind of like free you up to think about this differently and pursue physical health in a way that you might not have before. So, Liz, how do you want to kick us off with some of these things that we like to tell ourselves about physical health that are valid, like I said, but maybe not as big or as much of a barrier as we like to give them credit for?
Yeah, so this particular episode was inspired by just a personal aha I had recently, and that is the tendency to either ignore or explain away certain physical health related symptoms or ailments or experiences we're having. And also the fact that in many cases, if we were to just pause and like reroute from that, there in many cases are some really easy wins we could be having. But because we're normalizing that situation, we really essentially submit ourselves to it, like that it's just how it is. And I will give you all some examples. The one that came up to me the most, as I've shared with you all in other cup of joy episodes recently, I did this hormone replacement therapy recently, and would have never even thought to do it, except that I know someone whose wife is a nurse, and he and his wife both get these treatments because it's part of what she does for a living. And they're telling me how great it is, and I was like, something to consider. But for me, specifically on the sex drive component of it, I really had like this massive like halt in that element of my life when COVID hit. So at the time, logically, I explained to myself, oh, this is something to do with the fact that the entire world got disrupted, and therefore I'm experiencing that in some way that's manifesting, right? So
Mhm.
obviously it made sense, right, at that time to implement that explanation for myself. And I do believe at this time, I still believe that certainly had an impact, right? But what I'm realizing is that I never went and revisited that after the shutdown was over, right? To say, is that still a valid explanation? Well, maybe that's not accurate. I did revisit it, but then I was like, oh, that's still a thing. But I've been working on this doctorate, right? Which, oh, stress probably explains it.
You
I'm
explained it away
tired.
in a new
Yeah.
way.